Story 1. It was the last week of December in 2017, a cold Tuesday night after Christmas. I remember it because I was driving back home from visiting my sister, and I got caught in a freezing rainstorm. I wasn't hungry exactly, just tired, and a little queasy from the road. But I saw a Burger King glowing like a beacon through the dark, along an otherwise empty highway, and the thought of something warm and salty was too tempting. I pulled off and parked. Inside, the place was mostly empty. A teenage girl mopped the floors, while another employee leaned over the register with dead eyes and headphones hanging from her neck. I ordered a Whopper combo and sat at the far end of the dining area, near the windows. That's when I saw the man in the lobby. He was just sitting there. No food in front of him, no drink. He hadn't ordered anything, I was sure of it. He wore a gray wool coat that looked old and stiff with dampness. His hands rested flat on the table, fingers long and pale, like they'd been soaked in dishwater. He didn't move, just stared straight ahead, not even at me, just through things. I tried not to pay attention. I took a few bites of my burger and scrolled my phone, but something about his stillness kept pulling at my attention. I've seen weirdos in fast food places before. It's a magnet for people looking for shelter or somewhere to crash. But this was different. He wasn't asleep or restless. He looked placed there. I got up to use the bathroom and passed him on the way. His eyes didn't follow me, but I swear, I saw a little smile twitch on his lips when I walked past, like he'd been waiting. The bathroom was cold, and the light flickered overhead. I locked the stall door, and just as I sat down, I heard the faintest shuffle of movement from outside. Not from the kitchen, not from the front, just outside the bathroom. Then a tap. 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 Slow, deliberate on the door. I didn't answer. No one said anything. I waited, heart pounding. Then silence. I waited even longer. When I stepped out again, the door was wide open, but the hallway was empty. I walked quickly back to my table. The man was gone. But on the table where he'd been sitting, I saw something that hadn't been there before. A receipt. I picked it up. It was blank, except for one line, typed in the center. "I see you now." I looked around. The mop girl was gone. So was the cashier. It was as if the place had emptied out in the last 10 minutes. I stood there, feeling watched, like the lights themselves were waiting for something to happen. I left my tray on the table and walked out into the rain without looking back, got in my car, and drove for 2 hours before I felt like I could breathe again. I called that Burger King the next day, trying to laugh it off. No answer. I checked Google. It was listed as permanently closed. A couple of Reddit threads mentioned it, said it shut down suddenly. No warning. Sometime right after Christmas. Sometimes I still think about that man, how he was just sitting there, in the exact middle of the room, like a rotten tooth in a clean smile. Story 2. It was last summer, around 11:45 p.m., when I stopped at the 24-hour Burger King near my apartment. I work night shifts at a warehouse, and sometimes I need something greasy before crashing into bed. That night, I had my dog, Max, with me. He's a German Shepherd mix, old but sharp, never reacts to much, unless he senses something off. I pulled into the lot. It was almost empty except for one car, a dark sedan parked sideways across 2 spots. Headlights off, windows up, no one inside that I could see. Already felt weird. Inside, the place was brightly lit, but dead silent. No music, no chatter from the kitchen. I walked up to the counter, rang the bell. Nobody came out. Max sat just outside the glass door, staring in at me, ears perked. I called out, "Hello?" Still nothing. After another minute, I leaned over the counter and peered into the kitchen. Fryers looked clean. No steam. No food. It looked closed, but the doors were unlocked and the lights were on. That's when I noticed a burger, perfectly wrapped, sitting on the edge of the counter like it was waiting for me. I should have left then. But something about the place, it felt like it was holding its breath, like I was inside a paused movie. I reached over, picked up the burger. It was warm. The paper had no logo on it, just white, greasy from the inside. I looked back at Max. He was now standing, tail rigid, eyes fixed on something behind me. I turned. There was a man behind the counter now. No sound of footsteps, no door opening. He was just there. He wore the uniform, but it was off somehow. The logo was older, like from the 90s, and his name tag just said, Guest. He was middle-aged, clean-shaven, hair buzzed short. His smile was small and perfectly still. "Order's ready," he said. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I got it." He tilted his head. "You didn't pay." I didn't know what to say. I just placed the burger back on the counter. His eyes didn't blink. He didn't even move to reach for the food. "I'm good," I said, backing away. He didn't follow, just stood there, head still tilted, watching me as I walked backward to the door. Max was growling low in his throat when I opened it. As soon as I stepped outside, I felt this wave of relief, like crossing out of a deep, wrong dream. I looked back through the glass. The man was gone. So was the burger. I got into my car. Max jumped in beside me. We drove off, and I didn't look back until I hit the stoplight 2 blocks down. That's when I saw the sedan from earlier. It was behind me. Still no lights. Still no driver. I turned left early, trying to shake it. Took random streets. But every 3rd or 4th corner, it would reappear. Always behind me. Always at a distance. It was only when I got near home and drove through a red light that it finally vanished. Next day, I went by that Burger King again in daylight. Closed. Boarded up. Graffiti all over. Looked like it had been abandoned for months, but the doors were clean. And someone had stacked fresh napkins in an orderly pile just outside the entrance. Story 3. There was a Burger King off Route 39 where I used to stop during long drives between college and my parents' house. It wasn't anything special, just one of those places you grow attached to for no real reason. The people there never smiled much, but the food was fast and always hot. This happened in 2014. I remember, because it was the same weekend my roommate totaled his car, and I had to drive 4 hours home solo. I stopped at that same Burger King for dinner, sometime around 9 p.m., just as the sun dipped behind the trees. There was only one other customer inside, a man in a faded denim jacket, sitting in a booth by the corner, chewing slowly, like every bite took effort. He didn't look up when I came in. The kid at the register was polite but distracted, glancing toward the kitchen every few seconds. I ordered a small meal and sat at a table near the window. The mood was strange, not quiet, but heavy, like something bad had just happened, and nobody wanted to say it out loud. Halfway through my fries, I heard something, a sharp noise, like a plate dropped or metal scraped. I looked up. The cashier was gone. So was the man in the denim jacket. The dining room was still, but I heard something faint from the back, murmuring, not talking. Murmuring, like a prayer or a chant, just out of earshot. I stood up, more curious than scared, walked slowly past the front counter and toward the hallway that led to the restrooms and the storage rooms. The murmuring stopped. That's when I heard footsteps, heavy, dragging, not toward me, away, but fast, unsteady, like someone was hurt and fleeing. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. Then I heard a door slam, followed by a low mechanical humming sound, like a big freezer turning on. A moment later, the power flickered. Just once. Barely a second. I turned back. My table was empty. But my drink cup was now upside down, and my food tray was gone. I hadn't touched either. Now I was getting nervous. I walked quickly back to the register, hoping someone would come out. I rang the bell again. Still nothing. Then, from behind the counter, I heard the quiet beeping of a camera flash. Beep, beep, beep. Like someone taking pictures. I didn't want to look. I can't explain it. Every instinct in me said no. Not curiosity, not logic. Just raw, ancient fear. I backed away and headed for the exit. As I pushed the glass door open, I saw something taped to the inside of the glass, level with my face. A Polaroid. It showed me, sitting at the table, mid-bite, fries in hand. But there was something behind me in the picture. A shadow that wasn't there before. Human-sized. Headless. I ran to my car, hands shaking too badly to get the keys in at first. When I finally started it, I peeled out of the lot without checking mirrors, without breathing. I never went back. The next time I took that route, I made a point to stop somewhere else. But I passed the building just to see. It was burnt out. The sign was melted plastic, the windows blackened. A fire had gutted the place 2 months earlier, according to a local news site. No survivors. 2 employees and 1 unidentified customer inside when it happened. But I was there after that date. At least I thought I was. Story 4. This one's hard to talk about. It happened in 2019, just a few months before everything shut down. I was doing gig work at the time, mostly late-night deliveries. And one night, I stopped at a Burger King on the edge of a small town I didn't know well. Middle of nowhere. The kind of place where the gas stations still had those old green LED signs, and the road signs were rusted and crooked. It was just after 1 a.m., but the drive-thru was still open. I pulled up, and the speaker crackled louder than usual. "Welcome to Burger King," the voice said, slow and dry. "Would you like to come inside instead?" I paused. I thought it was drive-thru only right now?" Silence. Then, "Please, come inside. Dining room's open tonight." Something about that voice. It didn't sound right. Not robotic, but uncaring. Like whoever was speaking didn't know how to pretend they were normal. I backed out and parked. Against my better judgment, I got out and tried the front door. It opened. The lights were dim inside, like half the bulbs were out. The place had that familiar smell. Grease, ketchup, and floor cleaner. But the air was too cold. Much too cold for summer. There was no one at the register. I stepped inside and said hello, my voice echoing just a little too much. That's when I noticed the sound. A strange, rhythmic slapping, like wet paper hitting tile. It was coming from the kitchen. I should have walked out, but I kept thinking, maybe someone fell. Maybe someone needs help. So I followed the sound. I walked past the counter and leaned into the kitchen. It was spotless, empty. Fryers were off, grills cold. But there was water, maybe mop water, spreading in a thin layer across the tile floor. In the middle of it, a single burger patty, raw, and next to it, a paper crown, the kind they give to kids. I turned around, and there was a woman standing behind the counter. No sound, no footsteps, just there. She wore the uniform, but something about her face was off. Not wrong, exactly, just unreadable. Her smile was too wide. Her eyes didn't focus on me. "You came inside," she said softly. "I was told to," I muttered. "We don't usually open the dining room anymore." I backed away. "Look, I think I made a mistake. I'll just go." She nodded once, still smiling. "You can go." But then she leaned forward. "If you can find the exit." I turned around and walked fast, heart pounding. I headed to the door, but it was gone. I mean that, literally. The front wall was now just a solid stretch of dark glass. No frames, no handle, no door. I ran to the side door by the bathrooms. Same thing, just glass. When I turned back, the kitchen was dark. She was gone. But the smell of meat, raw, metallic, filled the air. Then came a new sound, children's laughter, but distant, as if from inside the walls. I ran to the back and tried the employee exit, locked, pounded on it until my fists hurt. At some point, the lights began to dim, one by one, until only the emergency sign glowed faintly red behind the counter. I slumped down behind a booth, covering my ears. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up outside, lying in the drive-thru lane, my car door open. No one was around. It was just past 4 a.m., and the sun was barely beginning to rise. I never found that Burger King again. I even drove back to that same spot the following week. It wasn't there. Just an empty lot with a rusted sign that said, "Available, zoned commercial." Story 5. This happened in 2015, in a town I won't name, because I'm still not convinced someone wasn't watching me long after it ended. I was driving across the Midwest on a solo trip, just trying to get away for a while. I'd just gone through a breakup, wasn't sleeping well, and figured a long road would help me clear my head. It didn't. Around 10:30 one night, I pulled off the interstate to grab something to eat. My GPS said there was a Burger King a few miles into town, and I followed it without thinking. The road got narrower, darker. I passed a string of half-dead trees and a gas station that looked like it hadn't been touched since the 70s. Then, out of nowhere, the Burger King appeared. Bright. Too bright. Like someone had turned the contrast way up. The parking lot was empty. Not one car. I went inside. Everything was spotless. Floors polished to the point of reflection. The walls looked newly painted. There were no sounds, no fryers hissing, no chatter in the kitchen. Just soft instrumental music playing from an unseen speaker. Something vaguely classical, but looped and warped like an old cassette tape. The man behind the counter was tall, with stiff posture. He smiled too quickly. "One meal?" he asked. I hadn't said anything yet. Yeah, just a burger and fries. Sit, I'll bring it to you." I sat at a booth by the window, though I could barely see anything outside. Just my own reflection and the pulsing lights of the sign flickering red, then white, then red again. My food came fast. Too fast. And cold. The burger looked real, but tasted like wet cardboard. The fries snapped like twigs. I took 2 bites before I gave up. That's when I noticed the photos. Each booth had one, framed, bolted to the wall. Grainy images, all black and white, showing different people eating alone. Some looked old, some recent. None smiling. All staring just slightly off camera, like someone had caught them mid-thought, mid-fear. In my booth's photo, the man looked vaguely familiar. Something in the jawline, the eyes. Then it hit me. It looked like my dad, but younger, way younger, like college-aged. And the restaurant behind him? It was the exact one I was sitting in. Same booth, same angle. I stood, staring at it, heart pounding. The man from the counter was gone. I turned and saw the door had been chained from the inside. Big, rusted links, like from a ship anchor, snaked across the handles. I yelled, banged on the counter, checked for a back exit. Nothing. Then I heard a click. The photo. It had changed. Same booth, same angle. But now it showed me, sitting exactly where I had been a minute ago, hand half raised, jaw clenched. I looked up and saw another man at a different booth. He hadn't been there before. Long coat, face in shadow. He stood slowly. That was enough. I took my tray, smashed the window with it, and climbed through the jagged glass, cutting my leg. I ran until I hit a convenience store nearly a mile away and had the clerk call a tow for my car. When I finally returned the next afternoon with a friend, there was nothing there. Just a cracked foundation, weeds growing through concrete. No walls, no building. The Burger King had burned down in 2003, the clerk later told me, after a kitchen fire took out most of the block. But I still have the scar on my thigh. And sometimes I see photos online, in odd places, forums, blogs, even social media ads. They're always grainy, and they always look like someone I used to know. Story 6. I was living alone for the first time when this happened. Small town, low rent, and not a lot of late-night options. The only place open past midnight was a Burger King about a mile from my apartment, tucked between an abandoned strip mall and a dry cleaner that never turned its sign off. It was a Tuesday, just after 2 a.m., and I couldn't sleep. I'd been feeling off for days. Dreams I couldn't remember, but woke up from sweating. Phantom knocks at the door, shadows moving across the living room when I was sure I was alone. So I got dressed and walked to the Burger King. The air was too quiet, not peaceful, just wrong, like the world had forgotten to breathe. When I got to the building, it was lit up like normal. One guy inside, maybe mid-30s, sitting at a table near the front with a laptop and a half-eaten burger. The girl at the counter didn't say anything when I came in, just stared at me with this blank, dull expression. She didn't blink. I ordered anyway. "Number 2, no onions," I said. Still, she didn't say a word, just turned and walked away. I sat at a booth facing the windows. That's when I noticed something odd. My reflection was delayed. It wasn't obvious at first, but I moved my hand slowly and saw the image in the glass respond a beat too late. Not lagging like a video stream, more like copying me on purpose. The man with the laptop looked up then. "You see it too," he said. I blinked. "See what?" He didn't answer, just shut his laptop and stood up. His tray was gone. I don't mean he cleaned it up. I mean it was just gone. No wrapper, no cup, no crumbs. The surface of his table was spotless, like he hadn't eaten at all. "You should go," he said. Then he walked into the bathroom and never came out. I sat there, staring at the door. 15 minutes passed. 20. Nothing. The girl returned from the kitchen and placed a tray in front of me. It was the wrong order. Fish sandwich, no fries. But the wrapper had something scrawled on it in marker. "This isn't a place." I asked her about it, but she had already turned away. I looked around. Every table was now full. I hadn't heard anyone come in. Each person stared directly forward, faces blank, untouched food in front of them. No one moved. No one spoke. One by one, they turned their heads toward me. I stood up, knocking over my drink, and back toward the door. But it wasn't glass anymore. It was metal, solid, seamless, no handle. Then the lights began to buzz, high-pitched, whining. The tiles on the floor started changing color, flickering between pale white and dull red. I ran to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall. Inside, it was pitch black. My phone didn't work. No signal. No screen glow. Nothing. And then, I heard the door open. Not fast. Just a slow creak, followed by bare feet on tile. I held my breath. Whatever it was, it stopped just outside the stall, and whispered, "No one ever leaves clean." The next thing I remember, I was waking up in my bed, fully dressed, shoes on, legs aching. The soles were wet. I went back the next morning. Burger King was there, but boarded up. Sign torn down. Local paper said it had been closed for years. Health code violations, mold, something like that. I didn't tell anyone. But some nights, around 2 a.m., I catch a whiff of that strange smell. Bleach and grease, and my reflection still doesn't quite match me. Story 7. It was supposed to be a quick stop. I'd been driving for hours, through long desert stretches where radio stations fade in and out, and gas stations look like mirages. The sun had set, but the heat lingered in the air like a fever. I saw the Burger King sign flickering ahead, half the letters out, just BR__R in, glowing against the sky. The parking lot was empty, except for one car with its driver's door open and keys still dangling in the ignition. I went inside anyway. The lights buzzed overhead, dim and uneven. The smell hit me first. Not food, but something sour and metallic, like copper left out in the rain. There was no one at the counter. No sounds from the kitchen. The soda machines were on, but the buttons were taped over with strips of duct tape. I called out. No answer. The walls were covered in drawings, childlike, crayon-colored pictures of people in crowns. Some were smiling, some were not. Some were crossed out in thick black X's. There were dozens of them, all signed in the same shaky handwriting. Property of the king. I turned to leave, but the front doors were locked. I hadn't heard them shut. Then came a voice, a whisper from the kitchen. Sit down, eat, be loyal. I didn't move. I wanted to believe I imagined it. The lights began to dim, aisle by aisle, until only the booth in the back was lit by a single flickering bulb. On the table sat a tray. I didn't walk to it. I couldn't say why, but I knew if I sat there, I wouldn't get back up. Instead, I climbed the counter and ran through the kitchen. Everything was spotless, too clean. No grease, no crumbs, no signs of use. Just stainless steel and a single crown sitting on the prep table, turned upside down like a trap. I kicked open the back door. It screamed on rusted hinges. Outside, the desert was pitch black. The parking lot was gone. The road, gone. Just miles of dust and nothing. But I ran anyway. I never found the highway again, but I haven't stopped running. And I still hear that voice sometimes. At night, be loyal.